Let's go. Stripes, 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 yeah. Stripes, 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 yeah. Stripes, 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 yeah. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, day we ignite and Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. Day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Wake up the beast, every game day is a feast. Time to bust it off the leash. In the jungle dripping heat, tigers strike the city streets. East side stand up, west side stand up. If you reppin' time to put your hands up. Bengals stripes, we in it. New day, new age, yeah, we get it. Cincinnati, jungle fitted. Who they in our house, we win it. Orange and black and white, we build it. Earn our stripes, you know we kill it. Bleed our colors, jungle dripping. Nasty, natty, yeah, we lit it. Lit the crowd, get the city loud. Yeah, we feasting now. Fit the bounce, make the city howl. Now we beastin' now. Thunder through the tunnel, from the sideline to the huddle. Stripes we tatted on the jungle. When we flex that, who they muscle on them. Stripes. Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Stripes. Now who wanna move crossing on? Stripes. Now who wanna move on? If you got stripes and you let the city know you rock 'em, yeah we got 'em, yeah we fought 'em. Like that black and orange upon 'em. Never stop it till the beast on feast and know who they rockin' with the diamond stripes, flossin' on the ring. Cincinnati, she's our queen. We gon' show the world who king. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, day we ignite and Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Now who wanna move crossing on? Now who wanna move on? All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, the Iceman, Jeff Trunapole. And as always, I bring you sports from a West Side point of view right here in the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, home of them who they loving Bengals who kick off this Sunday. I cannot wait. Can't think of a season I've been more excited about than this one. It's been a while. But let's get to the channels that you might be watching me on. If you're watching me on YouTube, or excuse me, if you're watching me on Facebook, if you're watching me on Twitter, do me a favor. Go to the YouTube channel, Sports with Strawberry Ice. Hit that bell for notification. Hit the button for subscription. And every time I go live, you'll be notified. Now, if you found the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. I'm up to 1,357 subscribers. That is awesome. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Now I'm coming to you from the Ice Cave, and the Ice Cave is brought to you by T Properties. T Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out their website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. So like I said before, we got the season kicking off. We had the Bucks and the Cowboys last night, and Mrs. Ice was excited. She stayed up and watched the whole game. I didn't. I had to go to work. It was the Bengals. I would have stayed up and watched it, but they got to win. She's happy. I'm happy. She's happy. That's cool. But now we'll get to the real team, the Bengals. They're playing Sunday. So I had to go to the man. Let's get to Joe Goodberry. Let's talk some Bengals. Joe, what's going on, man?
How's it going, man? I'm excited to be here. Not only to be on your show again, but because the season started. Here we go.
Heck yeah, I like it. I'm so fired up. Like I said, I think the last time I was this fired up was probably Carson Palmer's second year in 2005. And I kind of really think that this team is a lot like that one. I think we can be a very potent offense, and I think this defense can be very opportunistic. I don't know if you think I'm crazy or not, but I think there's a lot of comparable items to 05 team to the 2021 team.
No, I think you're right. And not only because of, Carson Palmer being in his second year starting and the team really going 8-8 the last 2 years, you felt like, man, they're real close to taking that next step. And maybe that's the big difference, right? Is that like we kind of were like already expecting them to take that step. This would be more of a surprise, I think, nationally. But even still, I mean, people back then were still saying, oh, it's the Bengals. They're not going to win. They're not going to do it. And then they came out and they were just lighting teams on fire.
Right.
And, I do think that comparable could stick. And I think that is what gets me excited is that, man, there is a chance. I mean, I think the fan base last year, remember how excited we were to watch Joe Burrow, watch this team? We're getting this guy from LSU that just lit the whole college football season on fire. We want that. We want that personality. We want that attitude at our quarterback position. Now it seems kind of more subdued because he got hurt. I mean, we're still excited, but it's kind of like, oh, man, I hope he's still the same guy. There's still a little breath of that under the excitement. But there's a chance he comes out and he's even better, and he's good, and he's healthy, and he's strong, and he's Joe Burrow, and he's year 2 Joe Burrow. I mean, that gets you excited again. It starts to make you think, yeah, if he's that good, how different is this team? How good can they be offensively? You're right, though. I mean, in terms of excitement, I mean, people will be like, what about the 13, 14, 15 rosters that were really, really good? But it was kind of like, there was always the other shoe waiting to drop. Remember that? It was like, they need to win. They have to win. We put pressure on this franchise. Mm-hmm. You guys need to win a playoff game. This is crazy. The rosters are good. The coaching staffs are loaded with future coaches. It was almost like by the time they got to 2015, even though that was their best team, we were like, all right, man, put up or shut up. We're tired of hearing it.
Right.
And, I mean, they weren't even selling out a few games because of that. So the excitement is comparable to 05 more than it is to those early teen years.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I'll say too is because I always try to defend the Bengals in the national narrative, and I've kind of put it to like people like this: like if Joe Burrow doesn't get hurt last year, there's a very good chance the Bengals are very close to 500 with the teams that they had. And in my mind, if that happens, then the national narrative is like, oh, okay, well, they're 8-8 in Joe's rookie year. Okay, well, then they can make the jump just like they did, and with Carson Palmer and Marvin, in Carson's first year, they went 8-8, and they went 11-5. I think it was the 05 season. So that's where I think the national narrative gets twisted. They're like, "Well, you guys only won 4 games." I'm like, "Yeah, but if Joe Burrow is our quarterback for the rest of them, we win a lot more than 4." So that's where I think we make that jump. And I'm with you. I think Joe Burrow is going to be even better than he was because he's going to have the whole playbook and everything is open to him. He's going to be able to audible. It's his. He's been doing a lot of stuff under center more this year. Last year was a lot from shotgun. So they're going to be able to change a lot of stuff up. So I think they're going to surprise some people. The one thing that I am worried about, and I'm less worried about it the closer we get to the season, is the defense. And I'll put it to you this way. I think Lou has the best talent to do what he wants, the schemes he wants to run. He has the guys who have bought in, which is a big key, and are actually able to do what he wants to do more than he's had the last couple of years. Plus, how much money have they spent on that defense? That's the most they probably ever spent on the defense. So what's your thoughts on Lou and the defense? Yeah,
when you look at the cap percentage that the Bengals spend, it's number 3 in the league now in terms of on defense. So they should be decent at the very least. It's kind of crazy that we're only hoping for like an average defense,
right?
How much they have spent, but they really haven't put any draft picks there. It's Jesse Bates and Sam Hubbard only. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have brought in and handpicked these guys from all around the league that you're going to pay more to because you're signing them as free agents, and you're hoping it can mix together and melt together and form a cohesive unit. And you're hoping it's quickly without one of your big guys and Trey Waynes that they signed. So, at least week 1, hopefully he's back week 2.
Hopefully that's it.
And, I think you're right, though. Lou Anarumo has tried to get some of these other guys out of there. The Bengals don't typically release veterans too quickly or too early. I think a normal franchise may have just cut a lot of these guys in 2018 or after 2018 into 2019 and just started fresh then. And it's kind of actually been a 2-year process to get rid of the Carlos Dunlaps and the Geno Atkins, the AJ Greens these are franchise greats.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But franchises would have traded them away for something and got something for them or released them. I mean, that's just how it goes. So it's nothing against them. But the point is, it took them 2 years to get to where, okay, now I've got players that will buy into my system. And I'm 100% with you on that's a key element to playing defense in the NFL. You can't have,
Right.
let's just say, William Jackson not buying in completely and not
Carlos
doing
Dunlap.
exactly right and not doing exactly what you need, because
Right.
the defense will fall apart. It is your defense is as good as the entire unit, and if you got a couple weak links, offenses will exploit them. So I do think the floor has been raised on defense. I just don't know if Lou Anarumo's vision is good. All right, we don't know yet, because
that's my worry right there. That's where I'm at.
like, if you're a great artist and you paint your vision and everyone goes, yeah, that vision sucks. So it's not, you're a great artist, but the vision ain't there.
Right.
I mean, that could be an outcome. And that's when we come back and say, okay, the offense scored points this year. They didn't win enough games. Defense was terrible again. And we've got to make changes on that side. And that's just a scenario. That might be the negative scenario, because they have spent money. This is year 3. If Lou Anarumo was over his head the last couple of years, maybe now he's finally getting into it and he's ready to take that next step. And they have a new D-line coach in Marion Hobby that's got a lot of experience around this league. So maybe you can get a little more out of them than we've been able to get the last couple of years out of this defensive line.
Yeah, exactly. And the big thing that's going to hurt. Now we've made it through preseason relatively healthy, except for Joseph Osai, and that one, it hurts. It hurts more and more the more I think about it. As good as he was in that first game against Tampa Bay, and I know it's preseason, but still, he flashed a lot in that game, and just potential of what could have been. Now you have Darian Hodge, who is part of the solution. I don't know if I doubt he's the complete solution, because he is an undrafted free agent. But that's the part that scares me is our edge, because our secondary is what it is. I think as a whole, it's better, except for obviously Trey Wayne's playing would be nice, but they have to get pressure on the quarterback for all this to work. And that's where I think the Joseph Osai injury is really, really big, because I don't know who else they have. I mean, obviously they have Sam Hubbard, he's okay at pass rush. He's more of a run defense. Yeah, Trey Hendrickson, but you need some more edge guys, and that's one thing where I was hoping to find somebody, somewhere, trade or something. Like they got B.J. Hill from the Giants with a 3-tech, which that's good. Still got that edge. That's the part I'm worried about.
Yeah, and I don't think you can undersell the Joseph Osai injury. I thought he was their best draft pick, and I'm not saying that he's a better player than Jamar Chase. I just mean in terms of getting a guy at tremendous value that I thought could have gone in the first round. Had Joseph Osai go in the end of the first round, I would have said, okay, that makes sense to me. And so he was still there for you at the top of the third. They get him. I'm like, here you go. There's your other edge guy, because we know Sam Hubbard is a great run defender on the edge. They kick him inside mostly at defensive tackle, and it would have been Hendrickson and Osai, 2 really good athletes with a lot of energy. The high motors would have come around and at least caused some chaos on the outside edge. They now don't have that. And now I assume Hubbard's going to play more defensive end, get a lot of snaps there. He did last year too when Dunlap was traded. So he can do it. It's not where he's at his best, and he's not ideal for what you want there. But he'll have to do it, because I think when they traded Billy Price, I'm sure they would have loved to have gotten an edge rusher. They're just not there. You can't get, it's hard to get those guys that are actually going to come in and actually play for you. It would have been just a depth piece that maybe gets a few snaps a game. So I think they said, okay, we've got an opportunity to upgrade the interior of this defensive line. B.J. Hill, his rookie year, at 5.5 sacks. I mean, this is a guy that can apply pressure, has a good pass rush win rate in terms of the rest of the league. So I think he can help you. I just don't know how quickly they're going to start folding him into the snaps, because I think him and Ogunjobi could probably split their snaps 50-50. I think they're very comparable players. And if that's the case, I think you can get a much deeper interior defensive line this year.
Yeah, I think Larry Ogunjobi is going to have a breakout year, because from everything that I've read, and he was misused in Cleveland, and from what I've seen in the preseason, and again, I always say it's preseason, so you got to take it with a grain of salt, but he's been a beast, and he's actually, him and DJ Reader, I think, have gotten more pressure up the middle on the quarterback than I anticipated them doing. So if that actually follows through to the regular season, that'll help the lack of Joseph Osai not being on the edge, and it won't let the quarterback step up. So hopefully Trey Hendrickson and maybe Cam Sample, he's got to step up too. He had a big he played a lot in the last preseason game, because I know people were worried about him with his health, but he could be a guy that could step up. And again, what's your thoughts on Darius Hodge? I'm very, very interested in his story and where he came from, and what can we? I'm not saying he should or can replace Joseph Osai, but I think he can be a good third down pass rusher, at least for us right now.
He has a lot of intriguing traits, and he has a great get off. He can bend around the edge. He can provide some pressure from the outside just on being the guy he is. And I thought even he showed a few different moves between a long arm and a back inside rip move and things that, can get him around the corner and then counteract a good offensive lineman. Now, I would wonder if how much they're going to use him. Like if it's obvious passing situations where you don't need two defensive tackles out there, maybe Hubbard still kicks inside, and that's where you bring Hodge on the edge. Maybe that's 10 snaps a game or something. I'm wondering. I've seen the comparison of maybe he's our Vontaze Burfict this year, our undrafted guy that's really good. He looked really good in preseason. But Burfict should have been a first rounder.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Burfict would have been a first round pick if he wasn't such a jackass in college.
Exactly. He fell off the map on his own.
Right.
The other comparison is, remember when they had to start Damian Willis at wide receiver that week 1 versus the Seahawks, because they were like, oh, he's had a real good camp. He did this, he did that. And then he starts and we're like, I don't think this guy can get open at all in the NFL.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I don't want that situation. And then those may be two opposite ends of the spectrum. Maybe he's somewhere in between, a guy that can just help you out. Maybe he's like an Emmanuel Lemur undrafted guy that's an athlete that you can find a way to get him some production in this league, and they can use that. I'm hopeful, but I'm mostly just intrigued.
Yeah, that's kind of I'm hopeful. I'm definitely intrigued. I want to see what the kid can do, because I've been impressed with what he's done in the preseason and stuff. And the Bengals have actually, in their history, they're pretty good at finding undrafted free agents. No matter, everybody says they don't have a big enough scouting department and they don't do enough of this, but they find a lot of guys that other teams haven't. And now sometimes in the past, there's a lot of guys had lacking character or whatever. But as far as this coaching staff goes and stuff, they're not drafting guys like that. I mean, they're drafting a lot of team captains and stuff like that. So I don't think we have to worry about that with this team. But it is a very intriguing thing of what's going on with that. But the other thing I want to bring up is, especially this Sunday, you got Justin Jefferson. Trey Waynes is going to be on him. Well, now he's not. Now you got Eli Apple. How do you feel about that? Because Justin Jefferson's he's pretty good.
It was advantage Vikings anyway, even if Waynes was out there.
True. Yes.
You feel good about those. Today's league is offensive oriented. Those guys, good receivers are going to beat good corners. I mean, unless you have the rare Darrelle Revis and Richard Sherman in their prime, and I'm not even sure there's those guys in the league right now.
There's really not that many shutdown corners, right?
Depth at corner is taking a hit, I think, around the league as a whole. You go look at the Cardinals depth chart, and if you can name one of their corners, then I'll give you $1. But
it was Drake Kirkpatrick. It was one of them.
It's that bad this year that there's. I just don't even know who they're rolling out there.
Right.
Whereas the Vikings more went and got a bunch of free agents that we know, guys like Mackenzie Alexander, Patrick Peterson, who everyone knows. So the Bengals, where are they at in this? Waynes and Chidobe Awuzie, if they can be decent, you would take that. And now I think Mike Hilton is a good slot guy. I just don't know how many times he's going to be on the field versus the Vikings that played 3 wide receivers less than any team in the league. Right. They're not going to let Mike Hilton get on the field. And you're taking one of their better and prized free agents, I think, off that team, unless the Bengals get creative and find a way to get him out there even against a 2 wide receiver set. So it was advantage Vikings either way. Now it's a big advantage. Now, Eli Apple, for being a former first rounder, Ohio State, Lou Anarumo was there when he was drafted with the Giants. He's been a pretty much disaster everywhere he's gone. I mean, he really hasn't been able to cover too much. Yes, he gives you talent and experience and some depth, but we didn't want to be at that depth already in week 1. We were looking at this corner room from last year. We had guys like LaShawn Sims playing. We're like, hey, we can't do this anymore. And they got to get some more depth. And then they get Eli Apple. You're like, great, I feel better about that. So if he has to play at least that, and here we are, week 1 already. This is something you'd rather see for a few snaps a game, if anything. So I think the Bengals have to say, okay, how are we going to play defense then? It changes the way you play the entire thing because these receivers can beat you, Adam Thielen being the other one. I think they're going to play the safeties back. I think they're going to play like a cover 2 shell and say, okay, Awuzie and Apple, you're going to take your sides. You're going to cover your guy. You're going to have safety help. Do the best you can. But that means you're not bringing an 8th guy into the box to defend against Dalvin Cook in this run game. Mm-hmm. You guys better buck up and defend the run and play your gaps and be sound. I think that's what they're going to rely on and say, all right, how much money we spent on this defensive line. There's not much there at linebacker, though, so we'll have to see how these young guys play in terms of not much there in terms of resources and money spent. So I think they're going to say, okay, this D-line's got to win. And against the Vikings unit offensive line, that is arguably worse than the Bengals, I think that gets us a little more in the positive range.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying is, put your money where your mouth is. They put the money in DJ Reader and Larry Ogunjobi the last 2 years. We brought him in there to stop the run. So that game plan sounds good to me. But one thing would drive me nuts last year watching the defense, and I don't know how many times I'd watch the game on TV, and I'd see the cornerback back up and back up and back up, almost all the way out of the screen. I'm like, dude, you gotta get closer. So I'm hoping the corners play up a little bit more. And I understand why they did it last year, but it was still very frustrating to watch. But let's get to the thing that everybody keeps talking about, and it's Ja'Marr Chase and his drops. And I think he said it like 3 days ago, but the internet blew up yesterday about, Ja'Marr Chase says he needs a white striped ball, and the ball is a different size, and this is why he can't catch. And I'm telling people going, no, he was asked a question, right. Why, what's the difference? It's just the same thing as he said when at minicamp, when they asked him when he first got drafted, what's the biggest difference? He said, well, it's kind of hard. I got to get used to the hash marks. Hash marks are different from college to pro.
Yep.
I don't know about you. I'm not worried about his drops.
I am not worried. I mean, this is a guy who caught 80 balls, 1,600 yards, 20 touchdowns. We have enough tape and enough history of watching him be very, very good with good hands. I'm not worried about it at all. I think here's the thing. We just are coming off John Ross, so it makes some fans a little bit nervous. People have compared it to, on my show here. It goes, he's another John Ross. I'm like, are you kidding me? Right. Like, serious? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but that narrative, that question drove me nuts. I'm like, get out of here with that. You got to be kidding me. Right. So your reaction is basically how I was also when people say that. And right. So when I try to understand why are people reacting this way, and it's a little bit of fear. It's a little bit, here we go again type thing. And I get it. But let's look at the differences between Ross and Chase. Ross always had a little bit of an issue with his hands, even in college. I mean, his hands were fine, but he would rather cradle a ball. He would double catch at times. He didn't have the biggest hands, and he had short arms as well as Chase does. But difference being is, remember Ross's first game, he didn't get a catch. He got an end around that he ran for 12 yards and fumbled, and they pulled him out. I mean, from the very beginning, right, he had a short leash on him. And I think that is going to be the biggest difference between Ross and Chase. And maybe that was because Ross couldn't handle it behind the scenes when we didn't know this, right? And the Bengals were like, we got to get him out of the game. But it doesn't seem like Ja'Marr Chase has that issue at all. And I don't think they're going to shy away of even if the first pass they give him, he drops, he's going to get 5 more balls this week. He may get more than that. And all it takes is one big play. If you watch the Cowboys-Bucks game last night, there was drop balls all over. Yes, I mean, from Chris Godwin to Antonio Brown to Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb dropped a couple. Yep. And CeeDee Lamb had 9 drops last year. I think it was second in the league. And he was a very, very good rookie receiver. And I think he's going to still be good. Drops aren't, if you want to list offensive bad plays, holdings, false starts, fumbles, interceptions, sacks, drops are after all of that because you can, unless it's on third down, you got another play to make a big play. And I think Ja'Marr Chase is going to have plenty of those this year. Even if he ends up with 8 drops or something this year, he's going to have a lot of big plays because they're going to keep going to him. And I think that's the big difference. Absolutely. I could agree with you more. They are going to keep going to him. But to be honest, I mean, people ask me on the show here, like, do you think Chase is going to have, the best year out of the 3 wide receivers? And I keep saying no. I think T. Higgins is going to be the one who's going to be the breakout star. I think he was a breakout last year with his rookie year, but I think he's going to be the main. Well, I won't even say the main because I don't really know if we're going to have a main wide receiver. I think it's 2x wide receivers, what I think. But I think T might end up with more yardage or more touchdowns or somewhere around there. Yeah, if I were to say receptions, I would think it'd be Boyd. If I were to say yards, I would bet on Higgins, and I would bet on touchdowns for Higgins as well because of his body type. And they used him in the red zone every time they got down there last year. For the games he played to end up with the amount of touchdowns and looks even in the red zone, I thought he could have ended up with 10 touchdowns on it. If a few of those balls he would have caught himself, actually. There was a few contested situations where, I think Clemson T. Higgins, maybe a year 2 T. Higgins would come down with. So I do think Chase may come in third in all of those categories, but that doesn't mean it's going to, because I think you might get 90 catches out of Boyd, 85 out of Higgins. Right. And if that means, because remember, it's 17 games this year. Right. And so if Ja'Marr ends up with 75 catches, I don't think that's crazy at all. No. I think that's what they expect to do. You look at how much they actually throw to the running backs and tight ends, it is way behind the receivers. I mean, in terms of how their percentage of throws to receivers versus the rest of the league, they're near the top. So they're going to feed the ball to these receivers. All three last year had 100+ targets. I think we're going to see that again.
So that brings you to the next thing. And some people think I'm a little nuts with this, but I think Joe Mixon, I think he's going to have his best year ever. But I think he has a shot to get close or at least get to 2,000 total yards from scrimmage. And I mean rushing and pass catching, because he's going to be the third down, every down back. And he's got some pretty good hands. I mean, I watched a couple games last year, rewatched a couple games last year, and I didn't pay attention to how good of a pass catcher he is, but he's good at it. And he's getting better at his route running. What's your thoughts on Joe Mixon? What kind of year he's going to have?
I'm high on Mixon's potential this year, and it's because of that. It's because he's finally getting passing game duties. I mean, there was how many times last year or in the last few years where it's – and I love Giovanni Bernard. Like, that was one of my favorite players. He was a tremendous pass protector. His hands were just good. His running after the catch is just okay. And, he wasn't making guys miss. He was traditionally near the bottom of the league and forcing missed tackles as a running back. So he wasn't breaking off a lot of big plays. He was just a real steady, reliable, really good player to have on your team. But what it means is you didn't have Joe Mixon out there because of it. And this could be in 2-minute drills coming down at halftime trying to score. It could be a third down. It could be a random first and second down that they need to throw in, and they need the running back to pass protect. So there was a lot of plays Mixon was not out on the field. And because of it, I mean, I've gone back and looked at his Oklahoma tape, and Mixon was a dynamic receiver. I think he will be that. And his amount of making guys miss and turning regular catches into big plays was almost double what Giovanni Bernard offered in terms of the data and what the analytics say. I think that can only be a positive if they're going to keep going to him and do that more often. Maybe that means less carries, though. Right. But I'm okay with that. Less carries, more catches. Maybe you get some of those carries to Samaje Perine. Remember, again, 17-game year. Running backs, even in a 16-game year, average about 14 games per season. So now you may be looking at 3 games you're going to need Samaje Perine to carry the load. I think you may want to space that out and stretch it out. And maybe that, like I said, maybe we want to get to 220 carries for Mixon. And maybe that means 50, 60, 70 catches. I don't think that's wild. I think that's your best path to having a good offense.
So where do you think that leaves Captain America, Chris Evans? Where do you think that leaves him in the mix here? Is he going to get a lot of opportunities? Because, I mean, he's another guy. I call him Geo 2.0. You can put him in a slot. He can receive. He can do bubble screens. He can run. I think there's a lot they can do with him. What's your thoughts on Chris?
I think he'll have a role. I think he's probably the worst pass protector out of Mixon, Perine, and then Chris Evans. He might even be behind Travion Williams. So I wonder if they're going to say, okay, we'll get him in the game, and maybe for obvious passing situations where we plan on splitting him out wide. I wouldn't be surprised if he ran as many routes from split out wide as he does from the backfield in the start of his career. And in fact, calling a shot, I think he's going to get one deep ball out of a wide receiver alignment in week 1. If not, then it's going to be week 2. I think they have shown it enough in preseason and in camp that I think it's going to be a part of their offense they think they can exploit, because normally running backs cannot run downfield and track a ball like that. You want to give it to him short, let him run, let him make a guy miss. He can actually track a deep ball, which is rare. And if you can get that on a linebacker or a safety, those guys cannot track a deep ball. So you have the advantage there. You just got to place it well and let him get a chance to run under it. And he did that in that Dolphins game, the last final preseason game. And I think when they did that, and we've seen clips of them doing it in camp, I think that's a strong indicator that they have a clear role for him.
Yeah, I mean, I know the guy, your former podcast, the guys on Locked On Bengals they were talking about James and Jake. They were talking about when they had the roster come out that they're wondering if they would actually put Chris Evans as a wide receiver, just so they could keep Travion Williams or somebody else on the roster as a running back. That's how good of a route runner and potential wide receiver / running back that Chris Evans is. Like you said, tracking the balls and all that stuff. So that was, I don't know if the Bengals, I'm sure the Bengals were thinking that, but I don't know how viable option that was, but that was an option they were talking about doing.
Yeah, especially that day when they had to cut Mike Thomas and get down to 5 wide receivers for a little bit until they could put guys on IR. So it was like a 2-hour window there where we're like, well, okay, what are they? This is a team that likes to spread it out and play with at least 3 wide receivers. So you want to have that depth. And I thought, well, maybe they could use Chris Evans there if they need to as an emergency guy. And I wonder if we'll see that a little bit during the year if an injury happens.
Yeah, we might. Now speaking of the practice squad and the I haven't. I hope they get him back, and it's funny how much I've talked about kickers this year. But the punter from Ohio State, Drew Chrisman, I think I'm saying his name right. I know they had to release him. I'm really hoping they can get him back because I think he can be our potential punter for next year. Because I love Kevin Huber, but he's been there for 10 years. Getting older. That kid's got a leg. I don't know. I know they normally don't keep punters on practice squads, but that was their intention. Is there any room to get him back on the practice squad, or because that shows how much I know about the practice squad? I know it's expanded this year.
That's right. Yeah, it's been expanded now since COVID hit. So last year and this year, you can call guys up to twice a year before you have to sign them to a contract. So there's a lot of fluidity, a lot of flexibility. I think it's something the players and the teams like. I don't know if I've ever seen a punter on a practice squad, to be honest.
Not that I can remember. No.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not just the Bengals. Like I started thinking, like, man, is that the team do that? Or do they have to? It's not like a kicker. You see kicker once in a while because you don't want them to get poached and you want to train them, and especially if you got like a Darren Simmons that is known for helping fix some kickers. He would like to keep a guy and train him all year before you need him. We saw it with Cyber, and then he ends up getting a job with the Lions. So credit to Simmons for that. I just think with a punter, you probably don't have to worry about someone picking him up. If he wants to keep punting on the side and get some tips from Simmons on the side, I don't think that's against the rules at all.
Right.
You don't have to worry about it. If your punter goes down, you give him a call, you say you're ready to go, yep, and then you sign him.
Yeah, I hope so because I mean that like I said, Kevin Huber didn't do anything to lose his job. It's nothing against him. That kid's got a leg, and I think he's going to be a future. Definitely a future NFL kicker for some team. Hopefully it's the Bengals. So we talked about the offense. We talked about the defense. Before I get to Jackpot Joey, let's talk about the offensive line and where we're at now. I think if you would have told me back in March or April that Xavier Serafilia and Quentin Spanner would be our guards, a lot of Bengals fans would be like, oh, well, that stinks. That's not what we wanted. I think we're going to be okay. I think they're adequate guards. Honestly, my opinion is I would not be surprised by the bye week that either Jackson Carman or both, Deante Smith, both of them might be our two starting guards. At least one of them, I think, will be our starting at guard after the bye week. I said potentially both of them. What's your thoughts on Spain and Serafilia and Carman and Smith too?
Yeah, I like your point there about if you would have told us this maybe before training camp and before preseason camp, before the draft, before free agency. We would have said, what, you didn't sign a guy? You didn't draft a guy? How did this happen? Well, they did draft a guy. They drafted two, and they're not ready to start yet. I thought both looked good in preseason, though. I mean, Carman had to have developed through weeks 1 to 3 in preseason because he went from jump setting everything and trying to get on top of guys, looking off balance to, he looks like he can play, and he might be able to play quicker than I thought. Remember, he had back surgeries, transitioning from left tackle to right guard, and he was never really that good, in my opinion. I thought he had the traits, the qualities, big, strong, he moved well.
Right.
But like in terms of being a technician, I never saw that with him at Clemson. So I think he's going to have to take to the coaching, and we've heard he's got to be a pro, he's got to get in shape, these things like that. Great. If all that happens and you can work on his technique inside, he can be a good player. I mean, those big, strong guys that can move, that's what you want there, and he's young. So the surprise really was Deante Smith, right? I mean,
yep.
When I saw him, I'm like, this guy looks like a tackle. He's barely 300 pounds. He's got long arms, and he's coming from a small school. Maybe he turns into like an Anthony Collins type where you can start him if you need, but he's a backup on both sides, and he can give you, a guy goes down, he can give you 6 games, and you can get out of there. But now I'm thinking like, man, he looks like a good guard, and he looks like he can back up tackle. Maybe he will play. Maybe they got a gem, and we could use one. We haven't had one in a while, it feels like. So it'd be nice to get one on day 3 again. And if he is, that would be, man, what a huge boost that would be from what I just said of, man, what happened at guard? And if we were saying this in April versus if we get to November and both those guys are starting and doing well, we're going to be like, good job.
Exactly. That would be a hell of a draft. I mean, one thing I'll put it this way is one thing I noticed is in, I think it was the Washington game or the Buccaneers game? The one where Spain got out, he's pulling around and he got the holding call.
Yeah,
Washington. Washington. That's what it was. I'm sitting there. I think Deante Smith is more athletic. He'd get out there quicker and would it wouldn't be a holding. I mean, I don't even know if it was holding or not. To be honest, it's kind of a ticky-tack call. But either way, I'm saying he would be out there. He's more athletic and faster to get out there it wouldn't be an issue. That's where he has impressed me. I mean, when they drafted him, I started watching some of his tape of the Senior Bowl and stuff. I'm like, wow, he doesn't look that bad. Now I'm a Bearcat fan. He played in East Carolina. I never paid attention to him.
Right.
I had no clue who he was. But the more I saw of his tape and the stuff I saw from the Senior Bowl, I thought maybe we have our future right tackle. But now I think we might have a future guard. And if you get both your guards in one draft along with your starting wide receiver, that's a hell of a draft right there, if you ask me.
That was the argument for taking Chase, wasn't it? Is that we feel like this is a deep O-line class and we can find guys. We need guards. I mean, we're repeating exactly what everyone who said take Chase, because you can find guards. They need guards, and you can find them on day 2 and day 3. Mm-hmm. If they do, then great, good job. I mean, because my initial reaction after that draft in second round was, whew, I don't know if they nailed this. The plan was there. I don't know if they stuck the landing. And now I'm kind of going the other way a little bit here of, okay, let's see these guys. Maybe that's the excitement of the season, right? Everything roses right now.
Like I said, it's preseason. We got to wait and see what happens, so, but. Yeah.
Right, and that's fine. That's where we're at. We should have, when there's hope, let's feed on hope.
And we're being positive. This is the positive Joe Goodberry side.
When it's time to be negative, I will be right there with you, saying they need to fire this guy. They got to do this and
Why
that.
Why are you doing that? Oh my God!
Exactly. Right. Now's not the time for that. Let's go out there and let's hope for the best for everything.
Exactly. All right, so let's get down to the man, Jackpot Joey Burrow, and the interview that's, I think, coming up this Sunday on ESPN. And the excerpt two excerpts that I like about it is they asked him if he had any worries about his knee, and he said no. And they asked him about the knee brace. He goes, I don't like it. It's bulky, but something I got to deal with. Hopefully, I won't have to deal with it my entire career. The one I really like is when they ask him for his expectation for this season. Without hesitation, he's like playoffs, win a division. And to me, again, that's not cocky. That's just confidence in what he expects to do. And I like that about him, because I don't think every quarterback coming into their second year after major knee surgery is going to throw it out there on a national TV show saying, I expect to make the playoffs and win the division. That's a pretty big call, I think.
And that one word is the one I think I want to hammer. I want everyone to be on board with. It's expectation. It's I expect.
Right.
Yeah, we can have our doubts with the O-line or the defense or whatever you want to pick. I mean, and whatever arises, because things will change as players get injured and things happen throughout the year. We can have our doubts with that. We almost don't have any doubts with Burrow and his confidence and his ability and where we think he's going to go. And the expectation for a year 2 quarterback is that they take a good step in the right direction. And you go back and look at history of year 2 quarterbacks, not only does their production and ability go up and their stats go up and their quarterback rating, I think on average goes up 9 points, which would put him at a 99 or 100. You tell me Burrow's going to have a 100 quarterback rating. I'm telling you what that means. That means they're competing for 500, if not better. And that's a good thing. We want that. Right, exactly. So if those things happen and he takes an average step up, and he may be not an average type of guy, he may take a little more. If that's the case, we're talking Carson Palmer 05 type situation. Now, expectations. We shouldn't sit here and go 6 wins would be nice, 7 would be nice, and we'll figure out the defense. I hate that talk. I don't like it.
Right.
Say they should win 9 games. Say they should win 10 games. Say they should be fighting tooth, claw, nail for the Browns and the Ravens and the Steelers for this division. And if you fall short, fine. But we shouldn't come into the year and say, well, I just hope they have a decent year.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the thing, too, with the national narrative. Some of these people picked the Bengals to win less than we won last year. I'm like, how? I'm like, dude, if anybody picks the Bengals to only win 3 games, they need to be fired. They're just not looking at what the talent we have. Because I know Jay Morrison did an article on The Athletic, and I don't remember who he interviewed, but it was somebody, quote unquote, expert. And this gentleman was like, well, I don't know what the Bengals, what they want to do on offense. I'm not really sure where they're trying to go on defense. It's the Bengals. I'm like, okay, well, you haven't done no homework at all, because they have Jamar Chase. They're going to spread it out. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to have Joe Mixon come out of the backfield. Our defense is going to be run stop oriented, try to, and try to get pressure from the outside. I mean, if I know that, I don't get paid for this, they should know that. So there's I will be absolutely shocked if we are not at least 9 wins. I mean, I always do everything with my orange-colored sunglasses, which I have to put them on here while I say this. But
Okay.
There you go. I think the Bengals are going to go 11-6. That's what I have. That was my preseason prediction.
Nice.
That was back when the schedule came out. People say I'm nuts, but I really do think at least 9-10 wins. I think they got a shot at it.
They should have. I mean, we should at least expect it and demand it. We should be sitting here. The money they've spent in free agency, the amount of picks they've dumped on offense. If this offense is not good, we got a problem, and a bigger problem that we don't want to talk about and face right now. And that's not something I'm even want to entertain for a split second.
Right.
So, like, I get frustrated with fans that are choosing to be negative at this juncture. Like I said, there is a time for being critical. It is not right now. And so for me, I look at things like, okay, this offense could be explosive. Burrow could take another step in development. We expect him to. They've raised the floor on the offensive line. I think your point makes a lot of sense in terms of they would have probably won 3 more games had Burrow been there last year. If they go 7-8-1, the national media, and that is probably a whole bigger conversation. Is why do we care so much about the national media talking about that?
Because I'm sick and tired. I know why. I'm sick and tired of hearing them say this crap, and they don't even pay attention to what's going on.
Exactly.
That drives me nuts. I mean, Florio still he literally said on his show that they are making Joe Burrow start in that last preseason game. I said, no, they're not. Burrow wants to play. I'm like, and he's still trying to do the narrative that Burrow doesn't want to be here. That's the stuff that blows my freaking mind. I get sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
you're right.
I get so sick and tired of that.
No, you're right. And it's the lazy analysis or the very shallow analysis. I went back and looked at all the Bengals playoff berths from 2005 to 2015. And I looked at where they were ranked at ESPN Power Rankings before the season. I mean, there were times they were 18th, 24th, 27th. They were 32nd one year, and they made the playoffs, guys. So, like, you got to understand, they don't put us under the microscope. They don't look very hard at this team. They don't look very – one analysis said, well, they're the Bengals. And I'm like, yes, that's what they will say. It's okay. We can't worry about it. No, what it does is it makes it harder to have a conversation with a non-Bengals fan, right? Because like that gets frustrating because they don't care. They may watch ESPN or whatever, the NFL Network, and get a snippet of what the Bengals are, but those networks aren't covering them the way a lot of us do. And so that conversation could be very tough to try and convince them of why their team isn't absolutely trash because the Bengals beat them. I'm dealing with that this week with Vikings fans. They're like, if the Vikings lose to the Bengals, blow it all up. And I'm like, listen, guys, this is much closer to a coin flip game than you think. Like, relax. You don't got to go that far.
Exactly. That's what cracks me up too let's just do a quarterback comparison of Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow. And I know you're going to say, well, Joe Burrow hasn't played a full year. I don't care. Joe Burrow had a better college career than Kirk Cousins did at Michigan State. To me, if they're playing at their highest level, both of them, Joe Burrow is way better than Kirk Cousins. And that's why I'm at the 11 wins, because 90% to 95% of these games, I think we have the better quarterback. And this is a quarterback-driven league. So if you have the better quarterback, you're going to win. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. He has, he's done a lot of winning with not a lot of talent around him, to be honest. I don't want that to happen to Joe Burrow. I want to always have talent. But that's what I'm saying. If you have that quarterback, you got that toy. You got that thing that everybody wants. And that's where we're not getting enough credit for how great Joe Burrow can be. And I think he will be.
Well, I think that's the point, right? If Burrow is exactly who he was last year with a little bit of recovery from his knees, so maybe he comes out a little slower, rusty. And the honest truth is he wasn't good enough last year. They need to hit on deep balls. They need to be more consistent with that. You can't have a good offense without splash plays. And they really were trying to do that last year. And they're scoring 23 points a game with Burrow without hitting anything deep, anything. I mean, they're missing multiple touchdowns per game by missing these throws. All I'm saying is they got to hit on one of those each game, and now they're scoring 30 points a game. That's why when we look at it, we go, I think we got the better quarterback in like 12 out of 17 of these games here, or at least comparable in most of those. And that's when it starts to turn into coin flip games. And while other people may see it and go, well, Burrow, who he was last year, coming off an injury, we expect Kirk Cousins to be the better quarterback. We're sitting here like, I don't think so. And don't be shocked if Burrow is much better than Cousins in week one, because because that's our team, because we're going to be a little hopeful. I do see how it could be a little bit of a struggle for Burrow.
I can see where Vikings fans to say that, but if you look at Cousins, I mean, all right, because the Vikings, their way they run their offense, they're not going to put the ball in Cousins' hands to win it. They want Dalvin Cook to have it. Bengals, everything runs through Burrow. Right there, right. That just the way the team and the head coach runs it tells you who's a better quarterback, I think.
Oh, I agree. But I've used this point before, and actually it started when Andy Dalton was the quarterback, because I'd say they're getting good quarterback production. They're not getting good quarterback play, and there's a difference there. They're getting great quarterback production with Kirk Cousins right now in Minnesota. It's because they're heavily relying on the run game. They don't let the line really kill them too much, and they've got fantastic receivers. So they scheme. They bootleg. They'll hit a deep crosser to Adam Thielen, and they're feeling really good. As the Bengals are, they want Burrow to make plays, and they want him to create, and they want him to be the difference maker in the game. And I think that's like, you look at these two O-lines. The Vikings are actually, in my opinion, worse. They're going to give pressure up a little bit more, but the Vikings offense isn't going to allow the O-line to be vulnerable that many times.
Right,
Maybe like 5 to 8 times a game, they're going to say, okay, you can now pass rush us without some play action or something going on. Whereas the Bengals may say, all right, we're going to throw it 40 times. If they're like last year's offense, we're going to throw it 40 times. 25 of them are really quick passes. You're not going to get anything on us, but you're going to get 15 chances to disrupt Burrow. And that's the difference. So can we outplay what the controlled system they're going to put Kirk Cousins in? Can Joe Burrow outplay that? I think he can. I just think it makes it a little bit harder when they've got a really good system there in Minnesota.
Yeah. Now, one thing I always say, when you're bringing up Andy Dalton in the 5-straight playoffs and all that stuff, I always put to everybody this way, and I was an Andy Dalton, I don't want to say apologist, but I kind of defended him because I kept saying, yes, he's not a great quarterback, but who are you going to get? That was always my thing. And I always try to put it to people like this, how big a difference a quarterback makes. Just say you plug Joe Burrow in there in those 5 straight playoffs. We're winning a playoff game. Dan, we might win a Super Bowl with those, especially in 15 with those teams.
It's funny because, it's hard because I was actually an Andy Dalton fan, but I had to keep saying, these rosters are really good. The staff is really good. They are extremely deep. We're getting held back a little bit by this quarterback here that really can't create outside of structure. And that's where the game was kind of starting to, just at that point, starting to mold into, right? That's how the Mahomes of the world and stuff are so dynamic. That's how Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have the success they do. Those guys may not have been successful 15 years ago, but the game has gotten to the point of, can you create when things break down? And if you can, you're gonna cause a lot of problems for good defenses. Dalton really couldn't do that ever. And I think a lot of people, when they saw Burrow, even for his 9.5 games last year, I had a lot of people that came to me and go, I see the difference right away. Like, wow, I see what he's doing. Like the play is never over. It's never dead. They can have great coverage and it doesn't matter. And I'm like, it's kind of what we were saying for a long time there. And it sucks to do because I remember those teams very fondly, 11 to 15.
Oh, I love those teams.
And we will.
Yeah, I wanted to. I wanted to win a playoff game so bad there just to say, look, see, but it didn't happen. But let's get into the AFC North. Now the Ravens, I cussed on my own show. The Ratbirds have had a lot of injuries here. Hell, they ended practice early yesterday because they had back-to-back knee injuries. Now they picked up Le'Veon Bell. He hasn't done pretty much anything since he's left the Squealers. Where do you think that puts the Ravens? I think this puts a lot more emphasis on Lamar Jackson and his throwing the ball. And I think you're with me on this. Lamar Jackson isn't that accurate of a quarterback. I'll take him in the pocket, not running, staying in the pocket and trying to beat us that way. They might have to do that more this year with the injuries they have.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think the running back injuries are that big of a deal at all for them. And I'll tell you why. I think J.K. Dobbins was good. And I think them spending a high pick on Dobbins meant they were like, let's get really good at running back. Because they were putting Mark Ingram, who was older back there. They were putting Gus Edwards. I forget the other guy's name that was running with Gus the first year that Lamar was out there. But he was getting like 5.5 yards per carry.
Right.
You saw it when like Michael Vick back in the day, when you have to defend a running back or a quarterback that can run that well, it makes it extremely hard for the defense to really crash down on a running back. it opens back the cutback lanes. It widens the lanes because you kind of have to keep a guy always count 11 on 11 on defense rather than 11 versus 10 because you're not worrying about the quarterback running at all. So their running game will be fine. I think it's centered around Jackson, so they'll still be able to run it. Will they be able to run it as efficiently and effectively? Maybe not. There might be a drop there because I think Dobbins was going to be really good for them. Mm-hmm. But losing Marcus Peters really hurts their defense really, really bad. Not only is he a ball hawk, he makes it extremely hard to throw to that side in man and in zone. They shift the defense the other way and really let Peters do what he has to do on that one side. He's as important as anyone on that team. And so for me, that gives a glimmer of hope that, okay, maybe Baltimore isn't going to be as strong on defense this year. Maybe they can't be as dynamic or as brave as they were the last couple of years. But I think if they ever wanted to get to the next level, now we don't want them to. We want Baltimore to crash and burn. But like I said about quarterbacks that can create, I don't think he has to be a tremendous passer. I think he has to be good enough. And I think they've drafted a bunch of receivers and tight ends the last few years now, and they just gave an extension to Mark Andrews. If these receivers get healthy, I spent a first-round pick on Rashad Bateman. If he comes back and he's healthy, I like this receiving core much more, and they may be forced to pass the ball. And in that case, they could actually get a little bit more explosive and dangerous. That'll change the way they play, but it also doesn't mean that it's completely bad for them.
Yeah, either way we go, I've said this before. I think the AFC North is one of, if not the toughest division in football right now. I mean, because I know everybody is putting the Squealers above us, and we're down at the basement, which is, I think, is going to be completely wrong. But the Browns are probably got arguably one of the best offensive lines in football, which I hate to say anything nice about. And I said, I keep cussing on my own show. I mean, the Clowns, they have arguably one of the best offensive lines in all of football, and their defense isn't bad. Now, for me, when I've said this, the way to beat the Clowns and the Ratbirds is I want the quarterbacks, and when I say quarterback, like I said, we got to keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket, which is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But Baker, I want him making the decisions. I think the more you make him make decisions and not have to run the ball, because I heard this on NFL Network. Bill Polian was saying that it's a perfect system for Baker. You know, it's ball controlled, running. You stop the run and you make Baker make the decisions. I think you got a shot at him throwing a couple of them to you.
You know, just the way I described the Vikings offense, Kevin Stefanski comes from there to Cleveland, and they run the same exact scheme, and it really helps Baker. It really stabilized him. It took the ball out of his hands at times, and when he was making wild decisions, because Baker is a risky dude. He's brave out there. Yeah. And I mean, that's fun for them, but it also leads to mistakes.
Right.
And so I think they wanted to corral him a little bit and say, okay, we like your talent. You're the number one overall pick for a reason. But we're gonna put a little bit of training wheels on you and make sure that you just don't go wild out there. And it's worked for them very, very well last year. But I don't think it's any surprise, because then here the Steelers are, whereas they're losing their quarterback to old age, they go and draft a first-round running back, right? So look at these other three teams in the division. They are built and designed to run the football again. I think the Steelers will transition back to that. I mean, you don't spend.
They're going to have to, yeah.
They have to, right? It's good. It's inevitable. I think that's why they spent the pick. So the Bengals, what if they signed on defense a big nose tackle and gave out all that money to DJ Reader? He's good against the run. BJ Hill and Ogunjobi are both good against the run. They drafted they signed 3 corners that are willing to come up and tackle and play good against the run. Von Bell, better against the run than he is the pass. He was fine against the pass last year, but I mean, that his forte is coming down and filling the run and being an extra guy in the box. Really, the only guy they didn't add that has a long history of being good against the run was Trey Hendrickson. So they knew they needed a pass rusher, so they went for that there. But Sam Hubbard's one of the best defensive ends against the run. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see a 3-4 defense largely when you're playing against these teams, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. And they're going to let Reader at nose tackle, Ogunjobi at the 3 tech, and the 2-eye or the 5 tech, depending on how they want to play it. It will be Josh Tupou, and maybe we'll get some BJ Hill in there too. That's a lot of beef. I mean, we're talking, you may even get Tyler Shelvin in there a little bit and get 700 pounds in the middle of that field.
Right.
That makes it harder to run now. And now those teams, you're going to hopefully get these offenses that don't want this. You're going to get them in 3rd and 7 situation, 3rd and 6. Quarterbacks have to drop back and throw. And there's a lot that I think people forget. NFL, just not NFL. Football games are largely dependent on the game script. And what I mean is, if this team is 3rd and 3 all game or 2nd and 4, you don't know if it's going to be a run or a pass. They can hit you with play action. They can run draw plays. They can do anything they want to you at any time. But if you can Get
Knock
them
them off.
behind the sticks,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
If you can get a holding penalty, if you can get a pressure in the quarterback's face on first down, now they're in disadvantaged situations where you can tee off on them, pin your ears back, you can send blitzes. Same works for offense. The Bengals had to throw away half their offensive playbook at times last year because they were always trailing. They always had to throw it, or guys were injured and you had to, work around that. Same goes for their defense. There were so many times where they're like, we're getting beat, they're running on us. We got no pressure packages we can even send. We're just getting run over here, and we just have to take it and hopefully get a stop in the red zone. So I think game script is important. The Bengals are going to want to control on offense, but on defense also make you get in this more third and longs than they've been able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing you brought up with Big Ben there, getting older, again to the national narrative, cracks me up. He made a pump fake, where he threw it, held onto the ball, and then they went nuts. Like, oh my goodness, he looks like the old Ben Roethlisberger. I'm like, good God, give me a break. Their offensive line, I think, is worse than the Bengals, and they want to run the ball, and that's where I'm like, and that's another thing where they drafted a running back. Oh, that's a great pick. I'm like, no, it's not. You need an offensive line, but that's where I think the Squealers are going to take a step back, but I have us splitting with everybody. I mean, I think we split with everybody in the division. I don't think we're going to sweep anybody. I'm hoping we don't get swept by the Ravens or the Browns or anything like that. But I think it's going to be a very, very tight, contested division this year. And I agree with what you're saying with the Bengals. They have to keep them off script, and that has got to start with the running defense up front. And Tyler Shelvin, do you think he's going to be a factor as much? I mean, at first, when we first got him, I'm like, wow, this dude's big. He's athletic, but he hadn't played for a year. So I don't know where you at on Tyler Shelvin.
He's a nose tackle, and typically those guys are not as valuable as the guys that are going to disrupt the pass. Obviously,
Right.
you need them. You need them because they free up your other players to make plays. So Shelvin did that a lot at LSU without getting credit for any of the impact plays that could be made around him, because that's just the role of the nose tackle. You're there to eat bodies in space. Having said that, typically you don't have two nose tackles active on game day. You'll have DJ Reader, and then if something goes down, you'll slide Josh Tupou over, and you'll work that way. Ogunjobi's played it in Cleveland. He can slide over, and you change up what you do. Normally, because you just don't have that many D tackles out there. It's a passing league. A lot of times you'll play with two in a base defense and one in your nickel package, and you'll try and get after the pass rusher or get after the passer. I think there are games like Cleveland, like Baltimore, maybe Pittsburgh, if they really have to start leaning into the run, as I expect them to, is when you say, all right, we may need an extra D tackle. We may need another nose tackle here active on game day. And that's where I think Shelvin has a role. But I think when you go play like the Chiefs, no, he's not going to be active. You're not going to use him. He'll never get on the field. So it'll probably be a game-by-game situation.
But that goes to me where I'm very excited about this team is the depth. I mean, right there, how you're talking about the defense line and the depth we have. Mike Daniels, he's on the practice squad. He started how many games for us last year? Right. So the depth is I won't say phenomenal, but it's a lot better than it was last year. So
defensive tackle was bad last year. I mean, they were pulling guys off the streets to go play, and
literally,
right? No, seriously. I mean, I hope you're a fan of a different team, you're watching this going, really? No, come on, no, really? They did really, and it was bad. And so, just having guys now that being the fourth guy being Shelvin, and if you got to dip in even further to the practice squad and Mike Daniels, I mean, you got to feel much better about it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you've been on for almost an hour. I appreciate you. And I know I saw this on Twitter, and I forgot. I want to bring this up earlier for you, but you are going to the Jags game for the Ring of Honor, and people, if they want to, can sit in your section. Yeah,
the Bengals reached out about that and said, we think it'd be fun to get a lot of out-of-town Bengals fans to pick a game and go to it. If you don't live in Cincinnati or in the area, you really don't get to go to a lot of the events they put on and things they put on. You really can't get season tickets. So if you're going to make one trip, a lot of us have decided, a lot of social media, I don't even know what to call it, guys, people, personalities, whatever it's called. But they reached out to a lot of them after I talked to the Bengals and said, let's get a section. Let's clear it out. If you want to buy through their link and come to that game and make a trip, you got 4 weeks still to do it, 3, I guess, kind of now. Come and sit and have a game and have a beer and let's watch it.
Absolutely. Well, I will be there because I have season tickets, but I'm in section 158. And the other thing I'm trying to get out to Bengals fans who go to the game on Sunday, which hopefully it'll be sold out. And we didn't get to this part, but we get to it next time. Ken Riley and Ken Anderson obviously didn't make the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We both agreed that they should be. And I'm shocked that Ken Riley didn't. But anyway, to show our support, and this, I'm not taking credit for this, it was Bengals captain, his idea, that everybody, if you can, wear a 13 or 14 shirt, hat, jersey, something, to show the support that, Ken Riley got jobbed. I don't know how you go from being runner-up to, I don't even know if he's even on the list this year to make it. So that's where I'm trying to put that out there that everybody, we were 13 or 14, and just show support to Ken Riley and Ken Anderson.
I think it's a great idea, especially, and that may work also on that Thursday night game versus the Jags when they finally unveil the Ring of Honor and
exactly,
do it again there. I'd like to get a Ken Riley jersey actually.
Yeah, I've tried to get one. I'm working on getting one. I know Ken Riley, the second row. I don't know. I mean, I have to head him on my show or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I used to have a whole bunch of them. I gave them all away. I'm like, damn it! I wish I would have known you sooner. I would like to have them. Anyway, Joe, I appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody where they can follow you. I'd say what podcast you're on, but you don't do that anymore. You just show up on everybody's podcast.
I just come hang out. That's all I'm doing now. I'm just a fan here to talk football and talk shit to some other fan bases here. So
exactly.
You can blur me out there if you need to. But
you're right.
at Joe Goodberry, just how it sounds there. Not Goodberry Ice. I changed my name down here. I don't know if you noticed.
Goodberry Ice.
You got strawberry ice, Goodberry Ice. Let's go.
I didn't even see that. That's awesome, dude. I'm paying attention to the camera and all this stuff going on. I didn't even see that. That's great. So it's Joe Goodberry, not Joe Goodberry Ice. Got it.
Right. Exactly.
All right, Joe. Well, hey, when you come in town, definitely hit me up. I'll have to meet you in person for the first time.
Yes, sir. We'll do. Jeff, take care, man.
All right, brother. Who day?
Who day?
All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. And if you haven't followed Joe Goodberry, you should definitely be following him. He's he's a good follow for Bengals content and just a lot of, like I said, a lot of crap talking. He has a lot of fun. It's fun to follow him. All right, guys, let me get to the Facebook groups that let me live stream. And as always, I appreciate every single one of them. They are Who Dey Nation, Bengals Nation, Who Dey Legion, Cincinnati Bengals the Jungle, Bearcat Country, Cincinnati Reds, riding third, heading for home, the Ohio State Bucknuts, the Ice Bar, and you can follow me on all my social media platforms, all under Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Twitter handle is at Jeff A. Trunipole. TikTok, I'm at Iceman99. I got to bring this up here really quick, and I wanted to do that before I started getting into the Facebook groups, but I forgot, but that's okay. Today is a historical, monumental day for the University of Cincinnati. My Bearcats are officially in the Big 12. I'm very excited for that. It's official. They announced it. I think 2023 is probably when they're going to start. I can't wait for it to get here. It's going to be so much fun. The basketball conference is going to be legit. The football is going to be legit. It's going to be – I like it. I'm not going to have to sit on here and defend our schedule or defend our conference to people anymore. Now I know SEC is still going to be like, oh, we're SEC. I think eventually that's all going to blow up in their face because, my opinion, they're not going to have 4 SEC teams in the Final Four. They're only going to let 2 at the most. So all these teams that want to hurt them go to the SEC, not all of you are going to go to the Final Four. So that's where I think it's smarter to stay in smaller conferences sometimes. But what do I know? I'm just got the YouTube channel. I'm just happy it happened, and I'm happy that UC is in the Big 12. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully Luke is still there. By the time we get there, I think he will be. I'll be pulling a sound off later on tonight and putting it on the podcast. You can check it out on BeatPod, Spotify, Apple iTunes, pretty much wherever you get your podcast. Stitcher, I think, is one. I'm not on iHeart yet. You guys should go on iHeart, request me on iHeart podcast. That'd be great. YouTubers, my originals. We're at 1,357. As always, I appreciate every single one of you guys. If it wasn't for the very first person that liked my show, I wouldn't be doing this. So keep liking, keep subscribing, keep supporting the show. And as my boy, Jeremy Dimebag D's Nuts would say, remember one thing and one thing only, and that is
From the streets of Cincinnati, welcome to the jungle!
I love that thing. And that's just sports, baby. See ya!
Let's go. Stripes, 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 stripes. Yeah. Stripes, stripes, stripes. Yeah. Stripes, stripes, stripes. Yeah. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, day we ignite and Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. Day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Wake up the beast, every end day is a feast. Time to bust it off the leash. In the jungle dripping heat, tigers strike the city streets. East side stand up, west side stand up. If you reppin' who that, time to put your hands up. Bengals stripes, we in it. New day, new age, yeah, we get it. Cincinnati jungle fitted. Who they in our house, we win it. Orange and black and white, we build it. Earn our stripes, you know we kill it. Bleed our colors, jungle dripping. Nasty, natty, yeah, we live it. Lit the crowd, get the city loud. Yeah, we feasting now. Fit the pounce, make the city howl. Now we beastin' now. Thunder through the tunnel, from the sideline to the huddle. Stripes we tatted on the jungle when we flex that who they muscle on them. Stripes, Cincinnati, we gon' rise and in the jungle we unite and dripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Stripes. Now who gotta move like it on? Stripes. Now who wanna move crossing on? Stripes. Now who wanna move on? If you got stripes and you let the city know you rock 'em, yeah we got 'em, yeah we fought 'em. Like that black and orange Apollo, bingo bottle, never stop it till the beast and know who they rockin' with the diamond stripes, flossing on the ring. Cincinnati, she's our queen, we gon' show the world who king. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our veins, sparks gonna fly. The beast is awake, orange, black and white. Cause when the jungle come alive, day we ignite and Cincinnati, we gon' rise and